In the rural town of Alba, Texas, population under 500, the Caffey family lived a quiet life built on faith and family. Carrie and Penny Caffey were well known in the community as devoted Christians and active members of the Miracle Faith Baptist Church. Terry served as a youth pastor, while Penny played piano and taught children's classes. Their home sat on a secluded property surrounded by trees where they raised their 3 children, 16-year-old Erin, 13-year-old Matthew, and 8-year-old Tyler. The family valued privacy, faith, and a simple way of life. The children were homeschooled for several years using a Bible-based curriculum, and only recently had they returned to public school. Erin, diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, had been adjusting to her new environment and enjoying the social life that came with it. In the summer of 2007, Erin began working part-time at a local Sonic drive-in. It was there that she met 18-year-old Charlie Wilkinson. Charlie was from the nearby area, lived with his father and stepmother, and was known to be polite but somewhat rebellious. He and Erin quickly formed a relationship, spending long hours on the phone and seeing each other outside of work. For Erin, who had lived under strict supervision most of her life, Charlie represented freedom and excitement. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Charlie gave her his grandmother's engagement ring as a promise of commitment, which Erin proudly wore. When Penny noticed the ring during a church event, she questioned her daughter about it, growing concerned about the seriousness of the relationship. Terry and Penny soon began to worry about how quickly things were progressing. They considered Charlie a bad influence, particularly after discovering his MySpace profile, which contained profanity, references to sex, and disturbing imagery that did not align with the family's values. When confronted, Erin defended Charlie, insisting that he loved her and that her parents simply did not understand. Tensions in the household increased as Penny and Terry attempted to end the relationship. They forbade Erin from seeing Charlie and removed privileges, hoping the distance would end the attachment. However, the restriction only fueled Erin's defiance. The more her parents resisted, the more determined she became to continue seeing him. Communication between the two continued in secret, mostly through phone calls and text messages. Charlie, meanwhile, resented the Caffeys for standing in the way of the relationship. He began to tell friends that Erin's parents treated her like a prisoner. Erin started expressing anger toward her family, occasionally saying she wished she could leave and never come back. Over time, their conversations turned darker. What started as talk about running away slowly evolved into a plan that involved eliminating anyone who stood between them. According to later statements, the idea of killing Erin's family was raised several weeks before the crime. Charlie's friend, 20-year-old Charles Wade, and Wade's girlfriend, Bobby Johnson, eventually joined the conversation. Johnson owned a vehicle and would later serve as the getaway driver. In the last week of February 2008, the plan began to take shape. Wilkinson and Wade discussed bringing guns and a samurai sword. They spoke of killing everyone in the house and then setting it on fire to destroy evidence. Erin would wait outside during the attack and leave with them once it was over. She reportedly believed that afterward, she and Charlie could start a new life together. None of the group members were under the influence of drugs or alcohol that night. Each was fully aware of what they were about to do. In the early morning hours of March 1st, 2008, the plan was carried out. At approximately 3 a.m., Wilkinson and Wade parked outside the Caffey home, while Erin and Johnson waited in the car. The men entered through a side door and made their way toward the master bedroom, where Terry and Penny were asleep. Terry later recounted waking to the sound of the bedroom door hitting the dryer in the laundry room. Almost immediately, gunfire erupted. Terry was struck multiple times as he attempted to reach his wife. Penny was shot and then attacked with the samurai sword. The wounds to her neck were so severe she was nearly decapitated. Despite being hit 11 times, Terry survived by rolling off the bed and pretending to be dead. Their teenage son, Matthew, woke to the commotion and ran from his room. Recognizing his sister's boyfriend, he screamed, "Charlie, why are you doing this?" before being shot in the head. The youngest child, Tyler, tried to hide under his covers, but was repeatedly stabbed by Wade and Wilkinson. When it was over, the attackers poured lighter fluid and set the house on fire. The two men then left, joining Erin and Johnson outside. According to police reports, the group drove away together while the flames consumed the Caffey home. Inside, Terry regained consciousness as smoke filled the room. Despite his injuries, he managed to crawl out of the burning house through a broken window. He dragged himself more than 300 yards across rough terrain toward the nearest neighbor's house, bleeding heavily and struggling to breathe. It took him over an hour to reach help. When he finally arrived, he pounded weakly on the door and collapsed on the porch. The neighbors immediately called 911. Paramedics rushed Terry to a hospital where he underwent multiple surgeries but survived. When investigators were able to question him, he identified Charlie Wilkinson as the shooter and named his daughter Erin as being involved.
Why this happened to me?
Law enforcement from multiple counties began searching for the suspects. Within hours, police located Wilkinson, Wade, Johnson, and Erin at a mobile home owned by Wade. They were arrested without resistance. Officers found weapons and clothing with traces of blood, as well as personal items belonging to the Caffey family. All four suspects were charged with 3 counts of capital murder. The crime stunned the entire community of Alba. The Caffeys were considered one of the most respected families in town, and no one could comprehend how their teenage daughter had become part of such an atrocity. Neighbors, classmates, and church members expressed disbelief as investigators pieced together the timeline and motive. The hours following the Caffey murders were among the most intense in Wood County law enforcement history. By sunrise on March 1st, 2008, local authorities, Texas Rangers, and state investigators had secured the remains of the Caffey residence, which had been reduced to smoldering debris. Forensic teams began their work while officers traced information provided by Terry Caffey from his hospital bed. Despite being sedated and heavily injured, Terry identified Charlie Wilkinson as the attacker and confirmed that his daughter Erin had been involved in the plan. His testimony gave police a clear direction within hours of the crime. Later that same morning, investigators located all 4 suspects: Erin Caffey, Charlie Wilkinson, Charles Wade, and Bobby Johnson, at Wade's mobile home in Emory, Texas, approximately 10 miles from the crime scene. Officers arrested them without incident. A search of the property revealed multiple firearms, a samurai sword with bloodstains, ammunition, and clothing items later confirmed to have traces of DNA from the victims. All 4 were charged with 3 counts of capital murder. Because of the brutality and premeditation involved, prosecutors initially considered seeking the death penalty for the adult suspects. During interrogation, the accounts of the night varied slightly, but the overall story remained consistent. Erin initially denied any involvement, claiming she thought Wilkinson only intended to scare her parents. However, text messages recovered from her phone and from Wilkinson's revealed weeks of planning and direct references to killing her family. These digital communications became crucial evidence during pretrial hearings. Public reaction in Alba and surrounding communities was one of disbelief. The Caffeys were known as a close, faith-centered family. Terry's survival and testimony quickly drew national attention, and media outlets began referring to the case as one of the most shocking family crimes in recent Texas history. Vigils were held for Penny, Matthew, and Tyler, while many prayed for Terry's recovery. Within days of the arrests, prosecutors confirmed that they would not seek the death penalty for Erin due to her age, 16 at the time of the murders, but would try her as an adult. Her bail was set at $1.5 million, the same as the other defendants.
In the months that followed, the case moved slowly through the judicial system. The four suspects appeared in court multiple times as the defense negotiated plea agreements. Both Wilkinson and Wade faced the possibility of capital punishment if convicted at trial. Their legal teams eventually agreed to plea deals in exchange for life imprisonment without parole. Bobby Johnson, who had remained in the vehicle during the murders, was charged as an accomplice. Because she had not entered the home or committed direct acts of violence, she was sentenced to 40 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 20 years. Erin's situation was different. Though she was legally a minor, her role in planning the murders made her case more complex. Prosecutors argued that she was the intellectual instigator who encouraged Wilkinson to carry out the crime. In January 2009, Erin accepted a plea deal that spared her from a potential life without parole sentence. She received 2 concurrent life sentences with eligibility for parole after 40 years, meaning she could be released at age 59. The plea was accepted by the court, and the long legal process formally ended. The judge noted during sentencing that Erin's decisions were deliberate and calculated, describing her actions as beyond comprehension. As the trials concluded, attention turned to the only surviving member of the Caffey family, Terry Caffey. His recovery from 11 gunshot wounds had been slow and painful. Initially, he struggled with survivor guilt and depression, at times expressing suicidal thoughts. During interviews, Terry said he could not understand why his daughter had participated in such a violent act. Despite his physical and emotional trauma, he began speaking publicly about forgiveness and faith within months of leaving the hospital. He described one turning point that occurred when he revisited the burned remains of his home. Terry's decision to forgive the people responsible for the crime, including his daughter, became a central theme in his later life. He told prosecutors that seeking the death penalty for Wilkinson and Wade would not bring his family back, stating, "Jesus would have spared their lives." His response gained national attention for its compassion and faith-based outlook. Over time, Terry began sharing his story in schools, churches, and community centers across the United States. He founded a ministry and has since spoken in more than 600 schools and 800 churches, using his experience to discuss forgiveness, choices, and the consequences of violence. The case of Erin Caffey remains one of the most disturbing examples of family violence in recent American history due to the involvement of a teenage daughter in orchestrating her family's murder. Psychological analyses of the case have explored themes of manipulation, adolescent impulsivity, and dependence on romantic partners. Some experts have described Erin as emotionally immature and easily influenced, while others maintain that her actions were fully premeditated.